Welcome to the first edition of Mr. Harder's first Flip Classroom. I assume this will be a very humbling experience for me. I don't know if you guys have ever heard your own voice recorded, but it is terrifying. So I hope that this will be a very useful educational tool in our class and our analysis of Canadian history, World War II, and so on and so forth. My first question to you is to ponder the following. Have you ever had to make long, extensive plans before? Have you had to make plans for Christmas, family holidays, camping trips, sports teams, music events, dramas, whatever? Have you had to make plans? And have you had events occur during the planning process that kind of changed the way or how you saw the outcome happening? Have you had to make plans with people before? Do you both agree on how to go ahead with these plans or to make them? Do you have different ideas? Does this lead to friction? So I'd like you to pause the video now, ponder these questions, and then we'll pick up how this has significance to our analysis of World War II and the conferences that the Allies had to bring the war to an end. Welcome back. I'd like to turn your attention to the worksheet that is kind of attached to this video. You have a sheet that looks like this. I have a few things that I want you to try to fill out. I want you to fill out where these conferences took place over here. So you'll notice that Casablanca is in Morocco. So I want you to write in Morocco. Then next, if we want to talk about Quebec, you'll probably type in, I would imagine, Quebec is in Canada. So that's kind of the idea of what you want to look for there, okay? So follow along. You'll want, most of the stuff you'll be working through is in this column here. So this is the significance of these conferences. And then we'll be looking at, a little bit later, the main homework will be for you to figure out why these conferences were able to make these plans as a result of major events that happened during World War II. A very helpful worksheet will be this one here. You guys should probably remember this one. It'll probably still be in your binder. And the date, although you don't have the dates on here, maybe we can get the people who looked at these significant events could write these dates on the whiteboard, and that'll help you in this section over here. So let's get back to the slideshow, and then we'll just go from there. This is the Casablanca Conference. Casablanca is in Morocco, which is in northwest Africa. It was codenamed Symbol. Now, the major thing that come out of the Morocco Conference was the idea that the Allies would only accept an unconditional surrender from the Axis powers, that is Japan, Italy, and Germany. That means that there are no conditions. The only thing that they will accept is for Germany, Italy, and Japan to surrender. That's it. They have to completely submit to the Allies. Now, this was significant for a couple of reasons. One, there was really no incentive for the Germans, the Japanese, or the Italians to really stop fighting. If you have someone going against you that says, I will only accept unconditional surrender, that probably means that you will probably fight even harder because there's no really hope for you. You have nothing to lose at that point, right? Now, the Allies were able to do this because the Battle of Stalingrad. Now, Stalingrad is way, way, way over here. Notice this is where Germany is here. Stalingrad happened way over here. This is a major, major defeat for the Germans, one that they were probably not going to recover from. So the idea that the Allies would probably be able to beat Germany started here because the Germans were not able to recover from the Battle of Stalingrad. Casablanca, this is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States. And we have over here the Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill. Now you'll notice the Soviets aren't here. They probably have representatives somewhere back around here for the photo, but Stalin was kind of busy with what was going on in his city, Stalingrad. So he did not attend the conference, but the idea of unconditional surrender was there. Next, we have the Quebec Conference. The Quebec Conference was to plan for D-Day. Quebec, obviously, it's in Canada, and if you're going to have a conference in Canada, you have to have the Governor General of Canada, who is here, and we have the Canadian Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King. So here, they planned D-Day. They were able to plan D-Day because the Dieppe raid kind of showed them how to do an amphibious landing from England to France, and also the Italian campaign was going very well, and the idea of invading France from England was much more of a possibility at that point. The next major conference happened not long after that. It was the Cairo Conference. Now, there was a major Japanese defeat at the Battle of Midway, and this allowed for the Allies to kind of plan for what the Pacific theater would look like after the war was over and Japan was defeated. There's some familiar faces here. Again, President Roosevelt, we have Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and a guy that we've talked about but not really seen. His name is Chiang Kai-shek. He is the nationalist leader of of China. And these three guys kind of discussed what the post-war Asia would look like as a result of Japan being defeated. Next, we have a map of Asia here, or the Pacific theater, sorry. This is where Midway is, for those of you that would like to know where Midway is. Next, we have the Tehran Conference. Tehran is in Iran, I-R-A-N. It's in Iran. It was codenamed Eureka. The Allies promised, or the significance of this, was that they were going to launch an offensive in both the East and the West at the same time. And that same time was going to be around May or June of 1944. So this, for the Allies, that meant they were going to invade France through D-Day, and through the Soviets, they were going to launch a major offensive, Operation Bagration, which we've talked about a couple times. This conference was made possible, or the idea of having two offensives going at the same time was as a result of the German defeat at the Battle of Kursk. The Soviets defeated the Germans, and the Germans had no way of having any offensive capabilities after this battle. So the idea of having the Allies kind of squeeze Germany from both sides was very much a result of the German defeat at the Battle of Kursk. So these are the three gentlemen here. We got President Roosevelt, Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and the leader of the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin. You can see that there might be a little bit of tension between these three, especially between these two gentlemen over here. Churchill and Stalin were notorious for not liking each other. So now Roosevelt and Churchill travel back to Cairo to meet with the Turkish leader. Turkey had not yet entered the war, but they wanted to make sure that the Turkey was going to be on the side of the Allies. They were worried that as a result of Kursk, that the Soviets were going to win and win quickly against the Germans. And they wanted to make sure that as a result of this, that they weren't going to want to take over Turkey as well. So the idea would be is if Turkey joins the Allies, then the Soviets couldn't take them over. This is significant because they wanted, Churchill and Roosevelt wanted to keep this waterway, which Turkey owns, out of Soviet hands. So this is Cairo. Of course, Cairo is in Egypt. Now we're going back to Quebec. Quebec is in Canada. This is codenamed Octagon, happening in September of 1944. The planning for this was made possible by the D-Day landings being so successful, and also the offensive in the east. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet offensive against the Germans and Operation Bagration had been so successful that the war was pretty much it was almost guaranteed that the Allies were going to win. Once they were going to win, what were they going to do with the defeated Germany? They were at the Quebec conference here. They sorted it into occupation zones. So the British would have a zone, the French would have a zone, the Soviets would have a zone, the Americans would have a zone. The Canadians, not really. The Canadians weren't really involved in the conference, despite it being in Quebec. This is kind of symbolized here by, Prime Minister Mackenzie King out with a walk with President Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor, and the dog, while the rest of the delegates are probably off discussing important matters. He was out to walk the dog. Now we have a very, very important meeting here at Yalta. Yalta is in the Soviet Union, or the Crimea, which has come in the news in recent months. Yalta. Yalta, codenamed Argonaut. This established zones of influence in Europe. The Soviets would kind of get Eastern Europe, and the Americans would kind of be responsible for Western Europe. Now, they weren't physically own them; they wouldn't become colonies, but they would be kind of like their turf in a way. Now, this was made possible because of a significant American victory at the Battle of the Bulge. Germany was pretty much going to be defeated for sure, absolutely, as a result of this. The Germany was defeated in the west at the Battle of the Bulge. The Soviets were at the gates of Berlin in the east. This was going to be the unconditional surrender part was coming very close to coming into reality. Potsdam. Potsdam is in Germany, just outside of Berlin, actually. It didn't need a code name because if Germany is defeated and Japan is so far away and almost nearly defeated, the need for secrecy and security is not nearly as needed. You'll see that there's two new faces here. This guy is still familiar, Joseph Stalin. This is the president of the United States at the time. Roosevelt had died, and so President Truman took over, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill was defeated in an election by Clement Attlee, and that's this guy right here. So we have new leaders. These, especially Truman and Stalin, did not get along very well. Now, this conference was made possible because Berlin had been conquered. Hitler was dead. The war in Europe was over. Okinawa and Iwo Jima were in American hands, and this allowed the Americans to bomb the Japanese home islands at will. So the outcome of the war in Europe was now certain, and Japan was pretty much all but certain. Now the map of Europe was redrawn here at this conference. Populations would be moved to accommodate these new borders. This showed that but where these borders would be drawn would kind of make the Americans and the British in conflict with the Soviet Union. And it kind of showed that the Soviet Union and the Americans, and to a lesser extent the British, were not on the same page, and that they were going to have competing interests, and they had different objectives in Europe now that Germany had been defeated. The other significant part of this conference was that Japan was ordered to surrender or else. Now that or else is a mushroom cloud. Apparently at this conference, Truman told Stalin that they had a weapon that could knock Japan out of the war, but that weapon had not yet been revealed. So that concludes the slideshow that I have for you here. What I'd like you to do is to try and talk to some of your classmates to try to fill out this sheet here, and then try to, especially the significant outcomes part, and then try to line up which significant events during World War II allowed these conferences kind of to take place. And then we'll talk about this probable exam question down here. All right, so hopefully you found this somewhat useful, and we'll hopefully be able to use this flipped classroom idea again soon.